On today's Two on Your Side Town Hall, as Buffalo deals with a spike in violence, the feds are teaming up with local officers to try to fight back. One of the top federal officials in Western New York will join us live in just a moment.
Plus, are you planning some travel? Getting a passport could take a lot longer than you remember. We'll look at why and get some advice.
And while rare, there are cases of zoo animals catching the new coronavirus. Well, now the Buffalo Zoo is part of something that's only confirmed to be happening at a handful of other spots. We'll explain in a Two on Your Side exclusive.
And thanks for joining us this Thursday. We have heard and we have talked a lot over the last few days about the recent spike in violence in Buffalo. And the conversation always includes the question, what are leaders going to do about it?
Yeah, we got an answer today from some federal law enforcement agencies with a new task force that's about to get up and running. It's called Viper, and the feds say members will spend the next 2 months working with state, county, and local officers and also analysts to try to get people who illegally use guns off the streets while also targeting those who are providing the weapons.
And this task force will even include analysts on social media trying to intervene in fights online that might eventually lead to violence in real life. So there is a lot to talk about here, and joining us live right now to talk about it is U.S. Marshal Charles Salina, who is part of the new task force. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Sir, we gave a brief synopsis there, but tell us more about the focus of this new task force, how it's going to work, and are these new techniques insofar as, the type of work, and is it not happening locally here at the moment?
So the focus for us in the U.S. Marshal Service is to go after the violent offenders, those who are committing the shootings. Thus far, the shootings are up over 100% in Buffalo. They're on pace for 90 murders this year. So we are working locally with the Buffalo Police Department, but Operation Viper is going to include more resources to the task force. So our main focus is to go after those who are doing the shooting, who are committing the murders. So you're going to see a larger presence of federal, state, and local officers in your neighborhoods, in your towns, and know that we're there for one specific focused reason, and that is to arrest those who are committing these violent crimes.
And this task force is covering an area from here to Rochester, and that's a lot of ground to cover. How does that affect the ability to do your job? Does it make it more difficult, or is it an opportunity to literally cover more ground and get more done?
It doesn't make it more difficult because we have a task force in Rochester as well. And the local police departments, the Buffalo PD, the Erie County Sheriffs, the New York State Troopers, they're assigning their members to our task force specifically. So we're doing this every day normally, but now what we're doing is we're adding more resources. And even in Rochester too, the local departments are focusing on the violent offenders. I mean, folks are afraid to go out. They're afraid to leave their house. Innocent victims are getting hit by stray bullets. So what you're going to see is a group effort, federal, state, and local law enforcement, to try to put a stop to this violence. It's really ridiculous when you can't leave your house. Your kids, as a parent, you're afraid to let your kids go outside because you're afraid they're going to get hit with a stray bullet. So it's not as difficult because the partnerships between the federal, state, and local law enforcement agency in Western New York is incredible.
I know that for you as the leader of a law enforcement agency, you're always looking to quantify success, right? And I wonder, what would you say success looks like here? How will people watching at home know that this is working?
Well, I think if you see the shootings go down, I think the U.S. Attorney was asked that question today early at the press conference. Ideally, we would not like to see another shooting. With the summer months coming up, we don't want to see any more homicides. We would like to arrest the outstanding fugitives right now who we're looking for both in Rochester and Buffalo. We have an active list right now that we're going after, and again, we're adding more resources to go get them. So the goal would be to not have another homicide, and the goal would be to arrest everyone right now that is actively evading arrest, hiding from the police because they have either shot or murdered somebody in Western New York.
And certainly guns are a big piece of this, and one of the goals here is to go after those who provide illegal guns. And we hear from the state repeatedly that they're coming from outside New York. Is that what you are seeing? And if that is the case, how do you stop that from coming in?
Well, we have the ATF task force both in Buffalo and Rochester, and they're very good at what they do. They have indicated there are guns coming in from outside of New York State, and ATF has done the same thing. ATF has a task force as well in both cities, and they're bolstering their efforts too. They're getting manpower from other federal agencies, Homeland Security, DEA, from the sheriffs, from Buffalo PD. So not only is the U.S. Marshals Task Force adding resources, but the ATF task force, who focuses on getting illegal guns, is doing the same thing, as well as the FBI too. So, although we have 3 separate task forces, the FBI has a violent task force, we're all going to group up together. And, if the U.S. Marshals need something from ATF, vice versa, we're just going to push people over to their agencies and really stand shoulder to shoulder and try to put a stop to this.
You mentioned that this is happening in Buffalo, it's happening in Rochester. Really, this is happening in cities all over America. You are the U.S. Marshal for the Western District of New York. I wonder, what are you seeing across the country? I mean, are there lessons to be learned in what some of these task forces are doing in other parts of the country? Because this is something that we, again, are really seeing all over the country right now.
Yeah, I speak to my counterparts quite a bit. In fact, I traveled last week and had some conversations with marshals from Phoenix to Cleveland, and they're seeing the same thing in their area of responsibility. And fortunately, our United States Attorney J.P. Kennedy took the lead on this here in Western New York and put this Operation Viper together. Other districts are doing similar things, but with the great leadership of our United States Attorney, and he's standing shoulder to shoulder with the district attorney in Buffalo. I mean, they're on the same page. And again, if somebody's arrested with an illegal gun, the U.S. Attorney has said that he's going to try to bring that case to federal court, and the district attorney and him are standing shoulder to shoulder, as well as us and law enforcement are. But other districts in the country are seeing this uptick in violence, and similar operations I think you'll see happening across the country.
One of the really interesting pieces of this for me was the fact that there's this whole online component. Can you talk a little bit more about just how important that is and how much it plays into being able to get some of the guns off the street and stop the violence? Yeah,
the social media is a real big arguments happen on social media, and I don't want to get into too much on what we do with social media, intelligence wise. We work with the Homeland Security and other areas, but that is an important piece. But I really don't want to get into how we, if we're monitoring those things. But there are arguments that start on social media and spill out onto the streets. And back in the day, arguments were settled with fistfights. Now, it's just escalating, where shots are being fired in broad daylight, both in Buffalo and Rochester. And, women and children in the vicinity, they're so brazen that they're shooting at each other. And as we see, young children are getting hit and innocent victims are dying. It's really sad.
We certainly wish you all the best with this new task force and this new effort, because your success is all of our success. U.S. Marshal Charles Salina has been our guest. We appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Important conversation, and also today talking about the numbers from the last few holiday weekends, showing that there's just a real itch to travel with so many people vaccinated, a lot of restrictions loosened or removed altogether. Yeah, but if you're thinking of heading abroad, you might want to check on your passport's expiration date. It's because getting a new one could take a while. The State Department says anyone applying for a new or renewed passport can expect to wait 18 weeks for it to arrive. That drops to 12 weeks if you're willing to pay the extra $60 to speed things up. The delays are due in part to pent-up demand, COVID staffing limitations, and the lingering delays with the U.S. Postal Service. Erie County Clerk Mickey Kern says if you need a new passport anytime in the next 6 months, you should start on getting one now.
People, they had plans prior to COVID-19 to maybe go to Europe, a second honeymoon. Young people want to go to school overseas and study overseas. So there's so many people that want to get out again because we've been restricted for so long. However, the volume, the federal government, remember, the volume has been building up, and the mail volume has been building up for so long that you could see where it would get to the point that normally in a normal year, when people are renewing actively with the shutdown of the federal government due to COVID-19, that they're going to have a backlog.
So here in Erie County, Kern says the clerk's office can help you out with the process. You can go to erie.gov/passports, call the number on your screen, 716-858-8864, or you can just walk into the downtown Buffalo or West Seneca offices of the Erie County Clerk.
One footnote here, while the Erie County Clerk's office can only submit new passport requests, they do have the documents you need for renewal, and they can answer any questions you have about that process.
I think a lot of people may just be walking over and finding their passport and just checking it to be sure. I'm
Just
trying
to
to
make
think
sure.
of mine right now, like how much longer it's good.
I had to renew mine just recently, so I'm good for a bit now.
You're in the clear.
Yes.